All right, so hi, we're group 13, and this is our visualization. So the first thing you want to do is download the that zip, unzip it, and get all the get your folder ready. Go to that folder and type in this command, and you can also specify a port number, but the default is port 8000 here. So then if we go to localhost, port 8000, you can see our visualization. Now, the first visualization is just a gender versus major comparison. Um, as you can see, the one on the left here is general studies. That's the largest with, a pretty relatively even male to female ratio, coming from a computer science perspective. But this is just the larger fields of study. We have two of these visualizations. One is 65 students and smaller, and one is larger than 65 in the entire program. Um, we did that for two reasons. One, because U of I has a lot of majors. We wanted to make the x-axis a little more readable, and two, because some of them at the very tip of the scale have just one student, but the yeah. So it's a little hard to read the majors. We understand that. It was somewhat difficult for us to get it on the tooltip, and towards the end, time became a factor, so we were not able to accomplish that.
It had to do with how our data was being pulled to draw the rectangles. We couldn't figure out how to add both, like whether it was male or female, and then the size of the male or female counterpart per major, in addition to adding the major field, because the majors were positioned with the axis on the x-axis, and then just the way the rectangles were being drawn, there was like there was a subset that it was pulling from to create the rectangles, which then didn't allow us to pull from a different set to pull the which major we were also at. And there was just not enough time for us to figure that out. But that was something that we were trying to do.
Right. So moving on, we have the smaller fields of study, which is pretty much the same data set, just uh, it's these last two make up two halves of the same whole. This is also from spring of 2016. So this current semester. This was taken at the 10-day mark of the semester, as well as for the next graph that we'll show you.
Just an interesting thing to note with this gender to major comparison. Some of the majors, like jazz performance, is 30 males to 2 females, which is very interesting, and I didn't know that. And then, so like early childhood education is only 2 males to 59 females. So there's just interesting patterns like that we found, as well as like history of art is all females. And there's like a couple majors that have like completely just like all females. So like teaching of Spanish, and then I believe that one is chemical physics, which is also, or open studies, I'm sorry. Open studies is all females, and then like chemical physics is mostly males. But granted, on the larger scale, there isn't that many compared to the overall, compared to other majors, which have a lot more of each gender. Um, so then we go to the next page.
So this page is pretty straightforward right here. It is the college to student status, I guess. Undergraduate versus other. We originally had it undergraduate, grad, and professional, but we couldn't find reliable data for denoting a professional, so we just called them all others. So we didn't have to, uh, deal with that problem.
But then we also decided that that would be okay, because in the larger scheme of our visualizations in general, and like the portfolio of the different graphs. They're all focused on undergraduate like courses, students, etc. So we figured that to highlight to continue with that trend, it would be okay to then just have undergraduate versus other instead of going into specifics, because it kind of just groups everything together and shows more of a focus on the undergraduate fields.
So, here we have our last visualization. This is class size to GPA, just a scatter plot here. We have the x-axis scaled logarithmically, so the smaller classes aren't all bunched together. And you can kind of see a trend here. As the class sizes get bigger, it tends to have a slightly higher GPA, but only slightly. There's still quite a bit of variability because there are several majors that need, say, organic chemistry, and everyone takes Atmos 120 as a blow-off class, which has a very high GPA. I believe it's that pink one on the top right there. Yeah. 3.91. So.
Yeah. And then this is by GPA as well. So like you have classes like calculus, which are smaller class sizes, but then also a very low GPA because they're just really hard classes. But in like a smaller set, like a smaller section, so you'd expect generally to have a higher GPA, but for the most part, some of these classes are more difficult. Like econ statistics too, that's known to be a very like difficult class for like econ majors. It's dealing with a lot with that sort of thing. So kind of like you see like different patterns, and like there's like a pocket here of like the GPA that just isn't reached, just because like the courses just aren't getting that GPA. So that's kind of interesting to like see these different patterns within like all the classes. And I believe it's spring of 2014 that this data is pulled from, while the other ones are from the current semester.
Yeah, something sort of unrelated to GPA, but pertains more to the course size of courses offered at U of I. University of Illinois prides itself on providing these low enrollment, or not low enrollment, but class sizes that are small, so students can get a more personal educational experience, even though we're a public university. And when we mapped out this data, this really did confirm that.
And then just kind of like some visualization kind of pointers that we looked at. We looked to have a legend, but then for like all the different like majors that the class is correlated to, but there was just so many that they ran off the page, and we just couldn't. We tried scaling it down, and that just didn't work. So we omitted the legend with which the different colors corresponded to. And then additionally, we looked at trying to have like a toggle up in the corner to select and like deselect the different colors so that you could see more discernible patterns and you can read more into it. That was something where we had like time constraints that we ran out of, and it was a bit of a stretch goal on our end to try and get that, as none of us were really that familiar with implementing that type of thing. Granted, that would have allowed for a little more understanding and visibility, but this is what we decided to go with instead. Awesome.
Yep. So that is our presentation, and we hope you enjoyed it.
And then if you have any questions, just let us know.